All right, everyone. Hello, hello, and welcome back to Tea and Tavaverse. How's
Hey,
everybody been?
very
Super.
well.
Good.
Good.
It's been a crazy week. I'm in Atlanta and this weather has just, I don't know what's going on. It's gotten a little chilly in the mornings, and then next week it's going to be almost 100.
Mm,
I think that's a
wow.
Tennessee thing because I'm experiencing the same thing in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So
It's crazy.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready. I'm ready for fall at this point. So excited to be here and looking forward to having a really, really great discussion with a key guest that we brought in to our session this week, and that's Philip Blake. Um, Philip is one of the educators in our Tavaverse community, and we've shared with you over the course of the last few weeks what the community is about, and all of the benefits and knowledge that we're gaining from being a part of the group. But we wanted to bring someone directly that's in the community, really teaching and giving us insight and giving us information about how this real estate works, right? So welcome so much, Phil. Looking forward to a really great conversation. I guess the first thing that I would like to kick off with is just perhaps having you share a little bit about your background and experience in the real estate arena.
Okay, yeah. So I've been doing real estate 10 years. So I started in 2013. Some other backgrounds. So I'm a mechanical engineer as well, and it's another life. But I've been doing real estate 10 years. I've done a lot of wholesaling. More recently, in the past like four years or so, we've done doing a lot of buy and hold, and also some fix and flip as well. I have my hands in different commercial projects as well, from like triple net stuff with fast food restaurants, and then apartments and self storage as well. So I've been doing this, I guess, a long time. It seems to be a long time, but it went by so quickly. So that's like everything I do in a nutshell. I don't know if you got any other specific questions, but that's me right now.
No, that's great. So what got you into real estate? What made you decide to tip your toe into that space?
Um, every time I'm asked this question, it's very interesting because I'd say at a young age, I'm not saying I knew I wanted to do real estate, at 10 years old or something, but I knew I didn't want to be like in an office, if that makes sense. Like, you're a kid, you watch cartoons and you see shows, and it's just like, all right, I'm just never gonna do that, right? And then ultimately you become indoctrinated with school and stuff like that, and ultimately that's where you end up. But that's never where I pictured myself. So anyway, fast forward a bunch of years, a good friend of mine to this day, he had more mentorship in his life, where he had a cousin, or maybe it was an older uncle of his, but he's an attorney and he was also in real estate. So he had properties. So he was showing him different properties. So he was like, man, okay, you can buy properties and things. We're both in college together. And ultimately, he started sharing some of that information with me, like, oh, you could buy properties, you could do this. There was this book that he had bought. I don't know if someone recommended it to him. But point is, he ended up sharing it with me, and I read the book, and I was like, oh man, you can make all this money in real estate. I'm like, oh, okay. Because prior to that time, I never knew, like, you knew some people were wealthy, you have businesses and stuff like that, a lot of people work jobs, but I didn't know, like, how to even become wealthy, right? Just you go get a job, had a really good career job, go to school and whatever, and that's what it was. And now it's like, oh, okay, you can make a bunch of money really fast or really slowly, or you can build wealth and have residual income. So that intrigued me, and it just made perfect sense. I'm one of those people that when someone, regardless of what my own beliefs may be at the time, when someone tells me something, whether I agree or disagree, and it just makes sense. Like, I'm really quick to adapt and to not adapt to adopt those things, and that's what happened in real estate. I was like, oh man, this is it. This is how you don't have to go to work, man. You making $50,000 a month, or you got these properties, etc. So that's what got me started.
Awesome.
Yep.
Always looking forward to your Friday night classes in Tavaverse. And my question for you is, what would you do differently if you started real estate in 2023?
Oh, that's a good question. Man, if someone asked me that question, I don't think anybody asked me that question. I don't know if I thought about it, but that's a really good question. So it's 2023. I'm just getting into real estate. Okay, what do I don't know anything about real estate? Oh, okay, so that makes it easy. I don't want to give a cop out answer, but that'll make it easier for me. So this is my answer to anything, right? So if it's, I don't care if it's 2060 or whatever it is, if I'm wanting to get into a field, in this case, we're seeing real estate, and I know for whatever reason I'm passionate about it, or I can make a lot of money in it, et cetera, and I want to do well at it, the very first thing I'm going to do is get a mentor. That's just literally like, that is my advice to anyone. Like when somebody, oh, give me your top three things. Number one is always get a mentor. If you want to be good at something or you want to achieve something, you ask someone who has achieved what you want, or you ask someone who has achieved 10 times what you want. This applies from elementary school, middle school, high school. If you want to be an NBA player, I mean, try to find somebody who's made it to at least college or even an NBA, right? So same thing applies here. So the very first thing I'm going to do is actually what I did 10 years ago, same thing. And I did it by happenstance 10 years ago, by the way, but now I'll be more intentional about it. We got YouTube, so I would use social media, YouTube, to find out, if I don't even know anybody that's in that space, to know who the movers or shakers are. Okay, who are the people that are actually doing the business, and then start to try to learn conceptually from them, because I don't know anything, so I'm always learning. One of those or a couple of those individuals are going to resonate more. I just like the way they talk more, or I resonate with their story, or whatever the case is going to relate to me more. So I'm going to go deeper with that person. And ultimately, it's going to get down to like maybe one or two that I'm going to get close to vetting. And I'm going to go deeper with them. I'm going to end up looking to pay to play. If that's an option, to whether they got mentorship, they got masterminds, they got courses. I'm going to look to go deeper. Now, while I'm doing that whole research that I just described, there's different books that I'll be reading and just looking to understand. That's going to be my implementation, learning and looking to find that person who's going to be a mentor. I've done that in my own life. And effectively, what's going to happen is you're going to get to a point where like that person's going to come in and they're going to teach, they're going to give you the answers to questions that you didn't realize you're supposed to be asking. And it's going to significant, even if it took you a year to find your mentor and to to be able to work with them, you're gonna bypass so many landmines. It's gonna be well worth it, because now they're just, here's the game, here's the game. You don't have to go out and bump your head 100 times here and potentially end up quitting because, oh, real estate don't work, you know what I mean, wholesale don't work, or you can't do this. But you given the, here's how to do it, and now just go out and do it. So now that's makes your life significantly easier. So that's my general answer for what would I do in 2023. So same thing I did 10 years ago. If you start talking more specifically about like where the market is at, it's still a lot of opportunity for I mean, even wholesale right now. Once you get a skill like wholesale, or significant, or specifically marketing, and getting properties on the contract, finding leads and stuff like that, uh, like people are always buying. It's just the prices are going to adjust. I would focus more on creative finance right now, and subject to, because interest rates are high. Subject to creative finance. That's an excellent way to, I call it, going back in time, like specifically on sub two deals. Like we bought a property. The lady's got her mortgage like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and her interest rate is like 2.8%, 2.9%. No way we can get that now. And it's like 28 years left on it and whatnot. Well, in these today's markets, you know, you're talking 7, 8, 9%, 10% in some instances. So that's a way to kind of go back in time as far as the interest rate. So I would focus, like, definitely the skill of, so my top skills that I would work on is, I talked about this on the recent classes, but one, like sales and persuasion. That's just the number one skill to have, I think, period. Wholesaling, or quote unquote marketing, I should say, knowing how to find deals. And the exit strategy would be creative finance, subject to type of deals.
That's great. I love that you mentioned paying to play, because recently I've spoken to a lot of people, and unfortunately, there are some people in our community who have been burned in the past. And so they're very skeptical when it comes to making an investment that's going to help them out in the future. So I'm glad you said that, like, at the top of the list, because we do need to be willing to put some money in the game in order to learn what we need to learn. So thank you for that.
100%. Usually what you get out is what you put into it. And if you like people give you information for free, so you got to look at that. So to anyone out there that's like, hey, I don't, I got burned before, it's okay being skeptical. I'm not saying don't be skeptical. That's perfectly fine. But what I'm saying is you can't let something that burned you in the past make you burn other bridges in the future that had nothing to do with it. Because really, at the end of the day, that's your responsibility. What actually happened, if you look at it from an extreme ownership perspective, you chose to do business with someone, and maybe you didn't do enough research, or maybe you did. Doesn't matter. But the point is, you have to take that onus, and you have to take that and be like, okay, this is what I'll do differently. Maybe I'm going to vet them more. I'm going to get more specific because that could be a part of it. Like the friend of mine that helped me get started in real estate, like I was in masterminds before him, and I was like, man, you got to get in a mastermind, get a mentor that's going to help you grow into this commercial thing. The mentor he ended up choosing, ultimately, like he was, I guess, doing okay, and he was doing well in real estate, but my friend, he specifically wanted commercial. Like he wanted to go like a bunch of units. And this guy, he just had so much going in real estate. It just kind of seemed like he was doing everything, but he wasn't doing that. So while the program may have been useful, it wasn't specifically useful to my friend because he didn't have that expertise. He wasn't focused on just acquiring a bunch of units. And that ended up hurting. So he spent 15 grand on it. And then ultimately, like a few minutes later, had to like get partial refunds and things like that because he wasn't getting anything out of it. Like he's like, this residential stuff, not only do I know it, I don't even care to that's not what I'm looking to do. And that was on him. Okay, we didn't do enough research on the person or on him before you chose. You didn't see what he actually had done in commercial specifically. So that's why I said, if you want to do something as far as mentorship, find somebody that has achieved what you want to achieve or 10 times more and ask them. You know what I mean? But if they haven't achieved it, then that's, it's like going out the world backwards at that point.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Phil, you're talking about all these different strategies and everything. So how important is it to not necessarily have to master, but at least have some type of idea about different exit strategies? Because what worked in 2008 won't work in 2023. So the adaptability that you talked about a little earlier, can you just go a little more in depth in that? The importance of, not just having one trick or one tool in your toolbox.
Oh yeah, one of my mentors, he would always say that it's not the strongest, the fastest, or not even the smartest that survive. It's the most adaptable, right? And so that's very important. And here's the thing: when you talk about recessions and real estate market up and down, there's ways to make money in real estate, period, at any given time. But like you talked about, you got to understand the different strategies. It's nothing wrong with being a quote unquote one trick pony at a certain point in time, long as you know your limitations and you're like expanding it, right? You don't want to be a one trick pony forever. You don't want to have one tool in your tool belt just forever. So I would say it is important, and depending on how like your one trick or your one tool may be a very robust tool that does apply to a lot of different areas. So it could be very forgiving. Like for example, wholesale, right? Like you can pretty much wholesale in any market. Yes, like how much you're making per deal may change. How hard it is to get a deal may change. Like the different approaches that you take because, like hell, even 10 years ago, when like people were still feeling it from the recession. So, in Michigan, the market's still down and blah, blah, blah. So it was very easy to get people to like, they were already starting at a, let's say, low price or a reasonable price. Let's say a midpoint price. And if you start talking about the market, they go, no, blah, blah. And they would come down because they know. Well, like you talked about, fast forward to the past year and a half where the market is booming, all this crazy stuff going on. Everybody's selling real estate and it's like the market was up. I should say maybe the past couple of years. Well, you could talk to the same seller and now, I want unreasonable amounts. I want way more than what I was even like, what I don't even think is worth it, but I want it. Why? Just because I think I can get it. The market's on fire,
Right.
Now I got to talk you down from the moon. So there's that. So understanding the different strategies is important to the extent that yes, it's going to allow you to see more opportunities to make money. And the more exit strategies that you have, generally speaking, do allow you to make more money. For example, if you have a wholesale operation or you're a wholesaler, that means you have to get deals at a steep discount, so that way you can sell them to another investor at a normal discount, let's say. Okay. And now that's, excuse me, if that's the only trick that you got, if that's the only thing that you can do, you're going to have some limitations. There's going to be certain people that you cannot serve because they don't want that low amount, or that like the timing and the situation is not that critical for them to take that low amount. But if I add on something else and I say, hey, you're also partnered with a realtor, let's say, and you can list a property for them. Okay, so that means all those people that you're talking to that are not meant to work from an investment perspective, cash buyer perspective. Okay, now you got a connection that allows you to list a property and make money that way. Or if you also know how to do, like you got something called novations, or you know how to do the creative strategies. These are all different things that can help work with different people. So the more extra strategies that you understand and are able to implement, the more like this, like imagine it like slices of a pie, right? Okay, I can get this slice, I can get this slice, I can get this slice. So the better you are, the better your profit is, generally your revenue is in this particular case. Does that make sense?
That does.
Yeah.
It does make sense.
Definitely.
I was having a conversation earlier with a couple of ladies, and the biggest objection I think a lot of people have now is around the interest rate, right? So they're shy about getting into this space because they're looking at that number and they're saying, well, it doesn't make any sense. So, you touched on that a little bit earlier around creative financing, and, there really is never a perfect time. You just really need to make a decision to get in, but there's so many different ways now in which you can navigate that particular challenge. So, and I mentioned that to these two ladies earlier today, and they were a little surprised to hear of some of the things that I'm doing right now, in spite of the fact that interest rate are at 7-8%, right? So, I think that when you're educated and you're getting the knowledge, right, and we're able to leverage and tap into resources with educators like yourself, right? We know better, so we're able to do better, and we're able to walk that path towards reaching our goals because we've got the tools and the information necessary in order to make those actions, take those actions.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, you got to think about it. It's all relative. 30 years ago, not 30. Was it the 80s? In the 80s, I think the average interest rate was like 15%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That part.
so it's okay. It was people just stop buying real estate, and like I
Right.
said, there are certain things that you end up shying away from when things change like that in the market. But again, when you are getting the education and you have someone to guide you that's been there, done that, well, that gives you confidence, right? And not only gives you confidence, it gives you more of a blueprint. All right, I'm about to go do this, right? I remember when I first started, my first mentor, I didn't know what I didn't know. So anything he told me, I just do. Like, all right, he says that, it just was what it was because I didn't know any better, right? And that is actually when he used to say that, I'll really be able to help you because it's like you're a blank slate. Because he
Yeah.
would talk about some people that he mentor, and they had previous experience because they were realtors before, and they were in the mortgage loan officers, and they know real estate. And my friend's cousin, everybody else was doing real estate, so I know a little bit about it. He would have to undo, right? Sometimes you have to unlearn and relearn, and he would have to undo that. He's like, oh, but you was like, oh, you're young, you're a blank slate, so this will be easy for you. I mean, I still have my bumps and bruises, but yeah, there's a lot of value in that for sure.
So Phil, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So do you lean more towards on the residential investing or commercial?
I tell you, well, to answer that question, I guess it would be at this current moment, it's probably more residential, but I don't tend to lean on either more than others. The full answer to that would be is transitioning more into commercial. It's not that I have anything against residential. You can make a lot of money in residential real estate. So we have a lot of that going on as well. But when it comes to economies of scale and looking at some of the bigger numbers, to be able to do that on a single family, sometimes it's just not viable. It's not, it doesn't make as much sense. An example of that is buying a 1, 2, 3, 4 unit home versus buying a 50, 60, 70, 100 unit apartment building, right? It's a lot harder. It's easier to buy a 100 unit apartment building than it is to buy 100 homes, right?
Mm.
And I say that with a little bit of grain of salt. I said easier. I shouldn't say easier because we, if we really wanted to, we could do that. I mean, we are doing that, but it's more so. It's just the economies of scale. Okay, I can go about was 100 unit apartment building. They got one roof on it, maybe two, right? And I got management team in place, and I'm bringing in all this income, and uh, like it's just easier. On top of the fact that commercial, the way it's valued is different. Commercial real estate, because it's meant to produce income, is valued based on the income it produces. So there's something you can do in commercial real estate that you cannot do, at least to my knowledge, in residential, and that's what we call forced appreciation. Meaning, if I have a 100 unit apartment building and I can increase the rents by just $50, right? I force the value of that 100 unit apartment building from going from X to 1.5X or to 2X. Okay. Whereas residential, you can't quite do that. There are some benefits there as well, depending on, again, like I said, just depending on what strategy. I'm not saying one is better than others, but I think it's good to have your hands in both. So I don't really lean on one more to others. I would say at this point, we are transitioning more into doing more commercial, like I said, self-storage apartments, fast food restaurants, specifically vacant ones. So these are things that, because real estate is such a huge, like that's like an umbrella, right? So you can't just focus on everything, right? So that's what we look at commercially. And in residential, because early on we built the foundation, which is marketing and sales through wholesale, you get the deals coming to you. And at that point, we can decide we're going to wholesale this property to another investor, or we're going to buy this property and fix and flip it, or we're going to buy it, fix it up and rent it out. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think the answer's in there somewhere.
No, you've dropped so many gems. I love it. I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Go ahead, keep going. I got plenty of time, and I like to talk about it.
So, in your experience, Phil, what's the biggest mistake that you find people that are new in the real estate space that they make? What do you think is one of the key
Okay,
mishaps that they go through?
So people that are new, one, not starting soon enough. So that's always one there. People who are new, like I mentioned, not getting a mentor, right? Not having somebody to guide them, right? Thinking they can just go to YouTube University, which sometimes you can. A lot of information on YouTube, but imagine going on YouTube, you have to scour the web through this person, that person. They may say conflicting things, and this only applies in this situation and that. You don't actually know. You're not giving it. My first mentor would call it the signal. He said, you're not giving the straight signal. You got all this static around, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't, so you kind of, and it makes your learning curve significantly longer from doing that versus you got somebody say, hey, okay, I chose this person. They know what they're doing. I'm going to follow their framework to success. And then once you have that framework, maybe you can go look at other ones as well. So being able to focus. So not starting soon enough, not getting a mentor. There's other things I could talk about with like focus and things like that. One thing that I'll talk about for newbies is how do I want to put that? Like sometimes like a convention comes in town and all of a sudden we get a lot of wholesalers that are just reaching out, or people are getting into business, they brand new, and we can clearly tell, and they call us and they follow these things that some of the conventions go over that doesn't quite work. Like I said, so not being a seminar junkie. So when I say like the mentorship, I mean like legit somebody vetting somebody, they know what they're talking about, and they're legit trying to help you learn. They're not just trying to grab money from you, and they're actually applying, like they actually do the business. So that would be the criteria. Not, oh, I did this business 60 years ago, 20 years ago, and this is how we did it, and they haven't done a deal in 10 years or something like that, right? Because that means like they're not not to say they're not smart or not even qualified, but sometimes they don't have their finger on the pulse. And you want to be able to build a relationship with that person that can help guide you. I mean, literally, some of these things out there are literally just like grab where, oh, come, they hype you up. Oh, this person made this much. This person made this much. And oh, we got this big name person who's been in real estate and made all this money, etc. And come to our convention, and it's 10,000 people there, or 5,000, or 1,000 people there, and it's literally just to get you hyped up. And then they want to sell you something a little bit, and they want to sell you something else, and sell you something else. And you like, man, you start looking like, man, I got to spend 40 grand just to figure out. And it doesn't always take that. Sometimes that small guy, because here's the thing, some people not ready to get a lesson from Warren Buffett or Jeff Bezos, or even let's say a Tyler Perry, or, Oprah or whatnot. Like, some people, you're not ready to get mentored by them because they're at so many levels above and ahead where you are. I'm kind of hitting on two different points. The thing about the conventions is just be wary, right? Just to kind of drive that point, just be careful about that. I find that it's typically better working with an individual that you get to kind of build a relationship with via social media or a course, etc., where you don't have to make big mistakes. You don't have to spend $10,000. You maybe spend 500 or 1,000, and oh, okay, this is really helpful. And then you decide to go deeper from that perspective. But what I was saying as far as like Warren Buffett and stuff, not everybody is ready for that. So if you don't know real estate at all, and you're just getting into it, and I connect you with the biggest real estate developer owner in the entire world, they've done all these projects, they've done billions of dollars in real estate, and they're going to teach you directly. Now, that person may have a gift of teaching people, but it's far more likely that they don't. And the things that they are trying to teach, because even now, this stuff that I think is like just take for granted, super simple and easy, and I'm teaching somebody, and they're like, "But wait, how do you do this?" And I'm like, "Of course, it's just you got to dial it. What do you mean? You know what I mean, or something like that." And I literally don't even think about it. You know what I mean? But they are looking at it step by step because it's still a conscious, right? You guys know the different levels of learning, right? Where you got what do they call it? You got a state where you are consciously, not conscious,
unconsciously competent.
Competent is the word. Exactly. Like, you got, and I think it's 4 levels of that, right? Where you are unconsciously incompetent, which means you don't know that you don't know. You got it where you are consciously incompetent, which you know what you don't know, right? And it's different levels. I don't want to get too deep into that, but the point is, like when you get like, not everybody is ready to take a lesson from Warren Buffett. That's like the way I like to put it, right? He may say some stuff, but he got teams of people. He don't even get involved in the businesses because he's so big. He's been doing it for so long. He may give you a gold nugget, and you're like, you go right over your head because you like, man, hey, how do I figure out how to do this number? I'm still doing stuff myself. That's what I think about when I see those memes. People talk, would you take the dinner with Jay-Z or whatever for 500K or something like that? Like, most of you should take 500K because you're not gonna be able to appreciate the lesson. I'm serious. If you don't speak the same language, so it's like, where I give you $1 billion worth of game and it doesn't take,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can go on as far as talking about a lot of that stuff, but so that's a lot of what I see as far as like errors for people that are newer. And then focus, right? Trying to do too many things at once. The mindset stuff, I mean, I can go deep. You guys know in the classes, I talk a lot about that. But mindset, understanding how the laws of the universe work and how you can applies to you in your life. That's another thing. But I mean, I don't know how much time we got. So
Phil, you're doing wonderful. Like Stacey said, dropping the gems and everything. And that ties into the whole Tavaverse community. Whereas, we're taking people for the most part that are brand new to these industries. So it's like we're giving them the levels that's necessary to, about a year or two, probably, be able to sit down with the Warren Buffetts, but we have to start somewhere. So let's tie that all back into Tavaverse. What brought you to this community? Because you are successful already. What made you decide, hey, I'm going to connect with this community and, be here?
excellent question. So, you pick up on vibrations, you pick up on things when, you're invited to different things. One, like you guys would hear me say this all the time. I always talk about impact and influence, right? Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of people just don't have the opportunity. So we talk.
So there you have it. Our expert, Philip Blake, he brought in the tea and then some. So our links are at the bottom of the description. I hope you got some very valuable information. Until then, see you next time.